Happy holidays, everybody! Grab your goat, grab a beverage of choice, grab some popcorn because it is time for the Witches Movie Coven. Witches indeed, talking about witches in movies. We do this every week. We never agree, and we are glad that you are here with us right now. My name is Patti Negri. I am one of your five hosts. You might recognize me from The Witching Hour or from Ghost Adventures or one of my other podcast YouTubers or television shows. But this is my excitement, and this is about right now. I'm going to have everybody introduce themselves because I'm not talking a lot tonight. Start with you, Richard-Lael.
Yes, I am Richard-Lael. I am known as a gentleman psychic. I am also known from Ghost Adventures. I would like to say also I know Patti from the Love Boat.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm everywhere. I'm the gentleman psychic. I'm everywhere. I'm like Santa Claus, excepting I'm real, and I hate Christmas.
Jump in, Jason.
I'm Jason. I love Christmas. I even have my Bedford Falls sweater on today. It is a lovely little town. I also wrote a little book called The Llewellyn's Little Book of Yule, which I just love talking about this time of year because I truly, truly love the season so much. I cannot wait to talk about this movie.
Yay. Okay, thank you. Heather.
Hi, I'm Heather Greene, and I am the author of Lights, Camera, Witchcraft, which is the book decisive guide about witchcraft in American movies through history. And I also am a acquisitions editor at Llewellyn Worldwide and a religion journalist. So I do a lot of things in and around the area, and you can find me all over social media. So I can't wait to talk about this movie because I also love Golden Era cinema and the holiday season. So perfect.
Perfect. And last but certainly not least, Miss Courtney.
That's me. I'm Courtney Buckley. You may know me as Ghostbait on Scared and Alone, or world's biggest fan of a beautiful Christmas movie known as The Killing Tree.
Oh, God.
Oh, Lord.
That's me. That about sums me up right now.
I feel like I have to apologize to the world for introducing you to that movie. Like, that is, like, all on my feet.
And Jason, every time I go past my Christmas tree, I think about that movie now because of you.
Which
And the
means
tree
you
is
also
now-
think of me. Aww.
It's exactly. And it's named Clayton. Literally everyone's calling that tree Clayton now, except for Ben, who knows why.
I almost crashed my car the other day because I was driving down the street and it was nighttime, and off to my left I saw a giant tree in someone's yard with the lights hung just so that it looked like the tree from The Killing Tree when it was in its phase of like growing and shrinking and growing. And I screamed so loud because I was like, there it is. It's a Christmas miracle. It exists. And then
I almost parked the car and put a map right on that tree.
I really did.
Christmas with a map.
Mm-hmm.
A map and some boots. And the boots, you got to put the boots on.
Did that tree try to fornicate with another tree, or did it just stay still?
Probably that happened later at night. It was early at night, so that's a later activity.
I'm glad the children did not have to see that. That's good.
I don't know. I think I would be afraid to have an artificial tree anymore.
You're not wrong, Patti.
I know I'm not. Anyway, that was last week. Wow. Last week was The Killing Tree, and I'm still speechless on that one. But this week is It's a Wonderful Life. And I was told earlier by the Coven that everybody on the planet has seen this movie. It's a very old movie. It's been around a long time with some pretty amazing and famous people in it. But just in case you might be that one or non-one person who hasn't seen it, Richard-Lael, do we have an unbiased outline of the film?
I do have an unbiased plot line of the story. So it begins with a prayer service. Like every favorite thing of mine, it always begins with a prayer service. And it's God talking to this recent addition to the wings of heaven without his wings. And everyone is praying for George Bailey, who is this wonderful, good man from Bedford Falls, New York, who has fallen on some hard times. And at the whole beginning, you are basically watching snippets and moments in George's life, from the time in 1919 where he saves his brother from drowning in ice, to where he meets his future wife, Mary, and she whispers in his ear, his deaf ear, that she loves him and will love him forever. And then you go on to the future time where he's even with dealing with a drugstore. The chemist has lost his son, and so is about to poison accidentally another kid. Anyway, so all of these life moments that happen, and they're watching. And George Bailey owns the Bedford Falls Savings and Loan, where he took it over from his father, who is deceased, and his uncle, who is his uncle is incompetent. And so he stays. He does not go to school. He does not travel the world. He intends to, but he can't. He gives it all up so that he can help people. And he helps them build their homes, and he gives them loans because every man wants his own fireplace that he can call his own. And he's really, really good. But his uncle loses $8,000. In 1946, $8,000 was a lot of money. And the bank was going to call the loan, and he has reached his boiling point where he cannot function anymore. He cannot function, and the world is against him, and everything that could go wrong is going wrong. So he gets drunk. He drives down to the bridge, and then he meets this angel being who does not yet have his wings, and he rescues him. The angel jumps in the water to save George Bailey. And George does not jump in the water to end his own life. He actually saves this angel, Clarence. And then he wishes that he were never born, but instead, no, he wishes he were dead. And then he says, no, I wish I were never born. And then Clarence grants his wish. With the power of heaven, he grants the wish that he was never born, and he gets to see what it is. And then he enters into an alternate reality. The alternate reality that he ends up in is 1985, where Biff Tannen owns the entire town of Hill Valley. Yeah, that's the future without George Bailey. And so Harry Potter is apparently this old fat guy who now owns Bedford Falls, and it's now called Pottersville. And he ends up by punching Bert and Ernie in the face. And then he runs back, and he wants someone to remember him. Please remember me. Please, please remember me. And then it turns out that Clarence tells him, see what you gave up, because you weren't here. Your brother died. And when your brother died, he was not able to save the people in World War II. The entire platoon died. And because you weren't there, Courtney has no idea what's happening with her connection. Sorry, Courtney. So because he wasn't there, Mary never marries. And because he's not there, his children are not born. And because he's not there, all of these things have happened, and nothing is right. And so he wants to live again. He wants to live. He begs to live. He wants to live. And Clarence grants him that request. And then there he is standing by the river, and Bert, not Ernie, Bert says, you're bleeding, George. And he says, I'm bleeding. And then he runs back through town, and he goes back to his old house, and he is so excited that he's bleeding and alive. And then, of course, he's happy to see all of his children. And then there's a bell that rings, and the child utters the famous last word, God bless us, everyone, you'll shoot your eye out. And every time a bell rings, an angel gets its wings. And that's the end.
That's right. Way to go, Clarence. Way to go.
That's it. That's it. Everyone comes to his rescue. They give him the $8,000 he needs for the bank, and everything is right as rain. It ends with a happy ending because it's the 40s.
And everything did end in a happy ending in the 40s. Thank you very much. And everybody, I keep cutting out. I got this thing called cedar fever being in Texas in December. It's this allergy that takes over your sort of like a killing tree. So I don't have much of a voice, and I keep muting myself out to cough unattractively. So if you can't hear me, that is why. So moving on with this beautiful, thank you, Richard-Lael. That was beautiful, unbiased synopsis of it. And now should we go to our academic side of things with Miss Heather and everything that may or may not be in your book about this amazing movie?
Sure. It is not in my book at all because this is not a witch film. However, I really enjoyed that last rendition that someone put up. Colin, I have to point it out, for the satanic version, every time a cash register rings, a demon gets his horns. I think that is a
Ooh.
brilliant new rendition that maybe we should talk about financing at some point. So thank you, Colin, for that wonderful idea. But let's get back to this. So I'll put it in context. So this is 1946 when this movie was released, post-war era Hollywood. Hollywood. We haven't done a golden era film yet, and the golden era is one of my most favorite times, and actually a lot of my studies have been in this period of time, 1930s, 1940s films. This is when Hollywood was at its peak, and actually just before it begins to sink because of the introduction of television. And television by the early 50s, and Hollywood slowly descends into confusion. But this is still its height. This is still when Hollywood's films were everything that people wanted to go to. They didn't really have television. This is where they were going for this type of narrative entertainment. Of course, Capra, the director, is one of Hollywood golden era's best. By this period of time, though, he had reached his height. He was already famous. In fact, Liberty Films, who made this film, was Capra's own film company. They made 2 films. This was really his last film that is part of his career that people talk about. It's probably his most well-known film, although he's made a string of fantastic films. In fact, at least one of them was hinted at in the movie, where the newspaper, one of the guys is holding a newspaper up, and on it says something about Smith running for office. Of course, that is a hat tip to Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. And if you haven't seen that film, you must see it, because this leads me to Jimmy Stewart. And this is completely unbiased. My favorite actor from this period of time. Jimmy Stewart is a brilliant actor. He is America's best ever. And if you didn't see it here, he is good in this movie, but his shines and Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, and my favorite movie of all time, Philadelphia Story. And if you have not seen him in the Philadelphia Story, look up the drunk scene of the Philadelphia Story, and you will see how brilliant this man is. But he is a wonderful actor, and he plays this part, the main part of this. He was pretty young at this point. In his career, his career lasted a very long time, but he was also, at this point in Jimmy Stewart's career, he was an A-list actor. So you have a lot of really good people in this film. You have a Barrymore, you have Donna Reed, you have just a string of excellent actors in it. And it was just very typical for this point of time. It's very typical for Capra. It's a Capra hero. And it is I can't, there's so many things I can talk about with this film. And a lot of the stuff I might talk about would actually ruin the soft, wonderful holiday joy that comes around this film. So I'm going to keep that out of my discussion at this point. But there's so many things about this film to study, to look at, to watch over and over, outside of the fact the reason most people watch it is for the Christmas season. And to touch on this, and there's a lot of movies that probably would get lost in time, or just be one of many films, Wizard of Oz being one of them, if it wasn't for the repeat and the overshowing and television. And this is one of those films that became famous, became what it is, because of its showing over and over on television. And not in the case of Wizard of Oz, but in the case of this film, one of the reasons it was shown over and over was because the production company failed to renew the copyright. And I believe it went out of copyright. And I was just looking up the dates. It went out of copyright, and I wrote it down in 1974. So from 1974 to 1993, it was out of copyright. So people could show it as much as they want. You could actually show it and sell tickets, and nobody would be able to say anything. However, that was renewed in 1993 after a court case because the production company that owned the right, or thought they owned the rights at the time, failed to renew the rights, owned the copyright to the book this is based on. So they went ahead and had a court case, got the rights back. Now they have a deal with NBC. So yes, the one other thing is this is based on a book, and the book was based on, someone said in the chat that this seems like a Christmas Carol. So the original book or pamphlet or short story that was actually based on a Christmas Carol, and then they wrote this. It was called the Greatest Gift, I believe, was the original story. Came out in 1943, and that did take its inspiration from the Christmas section you made. Whoever said that, it's scrolled past, and then of course it was bought by, I think, Columbia, and then Columbia didn't make it, so they sold it to Capra, who made it into what it is today, into the movie everybody loves at Christmas time, over and over and over. So that's a little summary, avoiding my hyper and film critic stuff that goes on that we could talk about. So now I could do a whole 2 hours. I could write a whole book on this movie. So let's leave that alone, shall we?
Okay. I just want to say thank you to all the chat people, except we do not do soliciting in our chat room, Ben Armstrong. We do not do soliciting, so go away, Ben Armstrong. Those people, we get them on social media, and we are not soliciting Dr. Sam, an herbalist or spellcaster. We are all herbalists and spellcasters, so go away, Ben Armstrong. Other than that, happy holidays, and we love you all. Again, I'm going to go in and out. Jason, you seem to have a lot to say about this movie, so do you want to lead us into opinions, thoughts, experiences, etc.?
I love this movie. It is not the holiday season for me without watching this movie. Watching it has been a part of my life since I was in high school. I discovered it when it was in the public domain. I was babysitting for a family, and the mother there always wanted her kids to watch Christmas movies. Obviously, I met them in church as a Methodist, and she turned on It's a Wonderful Life. And back then it used to play on TNT or TBS, like basically all of Thanksgiving weekend, 24 hours, sort of like the marathons now we see of A Christmas Story. And I didn't get to watch it all the way through, but I was immediately captivated by it, because you'd see a scene and it would just resonate with you for whatever reason. And they all resonated with me. And I would get home then, and then I would watch the end of the movie. And then I would watch the movie again all throughout the Christmas season, because it played again and again and again. And there's just this beautiful power in this film. The fact that no man is a failure who has friends. That line, I'm going to cry tonight during this show, because all of those kind of words mean so much to me. And you look and you think about your life and you think, well, maybe it's not going the way that I want it to go. And that's certainly the case with George Bailey. But his life touched so many other lives. His life was so much better for everyone because it didn't go the way that he wanted it to go. And I mean, there's My Brother George, the richest man in town, which almost seems like maybe it's trite or an insult, but it's not at all. The wealth that he got through having hundreds of thousands of friends in Bedford Falls is something that I think we should aspire to. And also, it's the holiday season, and I think that love for one another, that love for others, that caring for others is really what the heart of this time of year is all about. And it's just perfectly said in this film.
And I think absolutely, Jason, you are right. I as stone-hearted as I am, I actually cried when I saw this film again this week. I did have to laugh a little, tiny little bit though, because when the man who was interested in Mary, I can't remember now what his name was, but the man who was interested in Mary originally,
Sam Wainwright,
and was going to be making plastics out of soybeans, and then he got really rich, and he shows up, and he's in a 1939 Packard limousine, and a Packard limousine that was the epitome of American, like that was the luxury car to have in the 30s. And then when he goes back to his own car, which is by this point a 20-year-old Model T Ford, which was the cheapest, and he kicks the door of that old Ford. You really start to see those cracks. I have given up my life. I have what is it doing for me? I don't have a Packard car. I have this old car. I don't have a new house. I have to live in an old house, which is actually fine for me. But I have this old house, and why do we have to have all of these kids? I wasn't able to go to school. I wasn't able to explore the world. I had to give up my honeymoon money for the vacation so that people could not, so they could have food during the Great Depression. I mean, he was so kind and so giving and so good to all of these people. And you know, I understand why he would begin to allow those little cracks to appear where it was just not working out in his favor, he thought. And I do understand that.
Absolutely.
You know, and when I was a kid and I'd watch this movie, I always kind of got mad at George because he does have a little bit of a temper, right? You know, like he's running up the stairs and the knob on the post comes off and he almost wants to throw it and he kind of yells at his kids, but that's human nature though, right? I love that it shows the best and the worst of people, that we're not perfect, that we can have these moments of doubt and we can have these moments when maybe we're a little mean to other people, but that doesn't necessarily completely define us as human beings.
Because I think it made him more human, actually, in that. You know, I relate to this movie on so many. I relate to this on so many levels, and I remember many years ago when I was going to university, and actually I was studying hair school. I was a hairdresser, and I thought I was running late. I'm always in that mode of running late, and this woman pulled right out in front of me. And for a good 5 miles, there was no passing, and she went under the speed limit. And I remember that I began to yell at that woman and scream at her. And by the time that I got to the point where I could go around her, it turned from a 2-lane into a 4-lane street. By the time that I got to where I could go around her, my veins were all popping and my eyes were red and bloodshot. And I caught my reflection in the rearview mirror, and I was the one. I wasn't affecting her. She was fine, and I wasn't late. And so I realized from that moment on that I was going to be the person that I wanted. That I was going to be what I wanted to be, and not allow those things to get to me when it would do no good anyway. So, but yes, even no matter how good one is, human things, life gets to people, and people are people. And even if the person who was cruel to you in the line at Walgreens, or if your server gave you the wrong cappuccino or whatever, people are people. And one moment does not define our lives.
Amen. Thank you. It is true. Especially right now in the holiday season, people are a little on edge. Everything going on in the world, people are a little on edge. Situations as they are. And we try and we want to be good, but we're not always. And that's okay. That's okay. So people do get mad. I just want to go back a little ways on the chat room with thank you, Robert. He said he had never seen this film. So that's good. So he said until now. So I'm thinking he did watch it now or he didn't watch it now, but we let him to watch it whether he did already or not. So that's pretty cool.
I think that's important because this is one of the classics of American cinema. So even if you're not watching it for the holiday season or for anything else and you just like movies, this is one of the ones you're going to watch in your first year at film school. Your first class, if you take a film class, you're going to see this movie most likely. So I am going to just say that I cannot see the chat right now for a technical reason. So if anybody has anything they want to ask me, I'm not going to see it. I'm not ignoring the chat. I just can't see the chat right now. So
Yeah, if anything you want Heather to see or anybody else, just
I
say,
can't see it either. I don't have it.
Patty,
Okay.
tell Heather. Patty, tell Richard-Lael. Patty, tell
Yeah.
Jason, because I can see it. I think our producer can see it. I'm reading it completely. We're getting a lot about karma from Colin, which is great, trying to figure out karma and something bad means something good. Matthew has not seen It's a Wonderful Life either. So
But if you want to talk bad about Richard-Lael or Heather, this is the time, because they
That
can't
is
see
true.
the chat.
And you know what? I promise, even if I could see it, I will not scream, "Why do we have so many kids?" I promise I won't.
Why do we need all these kids anyways?
Well, you know, I want to jump in here a little bit. So you know, this film, I think, if you push past or you know, push aside the Christian element of this. I mean, we're here witches. So if you push aside the obvious, very standard golden era language they use around morality, ethics, and religion, and you just look at the film in the way we're talking, it's a very universal message. You know, a message of the little guy championing over the big guy. You have that going on, of course. You have the heart, the family, all of these things. They're very universal, and they would have hit people in the 1940s very poignantly. You know, they were speaking about struggles that happened during the Depression 10, 15 years earlier. These people went through it. Most of the adults went through it and saw this. They had these struggles. They had struggled against the big, wealthy banker who had taken their money, who had destroyed. They had gone through what you saw. You know, so there was a poignancy there that we are not experiencing, a very current thing. Speaking of which, there's a lot of things that people might not notice, such as Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. They might not notice today. Did anyone notice alfalfa in the movie? He's at the beginning. He pushes the button that opens the dance floor to the pool. That's alfalfa from
the Little Rascals.
What's his name? I wrote it down here. Carl or Clive Switzer. Yes, that is alfalfa. He's in it for 2 seconds. I'm sure people would have recognized him at that point in time. So there's a lot of fun little things. Of course, Hollywood is a very closed system, so you had a lot of that going on anyway, regardless of whether it was meant to be a hat tip to earlier era of Hollywood. It probably wasn't. He probably just happened to be available. But people would have recognized him. So there's a lot of this stuff going on. There's a lot of this, and especially watching it post-war. People just came out of the war. You know, they just went through those struggles. So there's a lot of this sort of endurance through struggle and coming out on the other side and appreciating your family. This message was very powerful at the time, but it's universal. And I you know, if you read a lot of criticism that goes on more recently, people will say this message is current now. You know, I mean, if you look about, you know, the politics, environment, everything that's going on in the last 5-10 years, this message is very current and powerful now for people. And you know, that I think that because we just keep repeating that everybody here has experienced it. Everybody's looking at George Bailey standing there on the bridge, looking over, going, maybe it's time. I can't take this anymore. I'm going to jump. I just want to be gone. Tons of people right now and then they realize, wait a minute, I am important. I think this message, the movie may have been repeated because of a technical glitch, because of a legal glitch, but the message, it would not have endured if that message was not a universal message that was timeless. So, and it being a beautifully made film and a well-told story. So it's not just a legal issue that made this so enduring. And Jimmy Stewart. I'm just going to say that.
I love Jimmy Stewart. Was it an immediate success before the playing and overplaying? Was it an immediate success?
It was a failure when it was released in the theaters, and it lost $500,000, which is a huge amount of money by today's standards. And being a bankrupted Liberty Pictures, right? I mean, it was a colossal failure when it came out. Yeah.
I don't think it was a colossal failure. I didn't look at the numbers, but I didn't see it saying it was a colossal failure. But yeah, it wasn't the success it was today, for sure. But
I
that's
also think it's telling that one of the first groups to really show this movie over and over again during the holiday season was PBS, which I think speaks to the craftsmanship of the film and how great of a film it is. It wasn't just filler. They chose it because it was a great film.
Yeah. And it's tightly made. And it's Capra's he's one of those directors who makes films very tight. Everything on there is Hitchcock's the top of that kind of way of that auteur, but Capra's films are very, very tight. No loose ends. Everything spins around itself in such a tight way. So, and yeah, it's
on that tightness of the set, when we look at even Clarence, who, if he would have died in the 1830s, 1840s, and he even wears what would have been 100-year-old underwear,
yeah,
and he doesn't know what people are wearing in the 40s because he died 100 years before. And now we think about the 1840s and it feels like 1,000 years ago. We think about sometimes even the 1940s and it seems like 1,000 years ago.
Right.
But this movie, it connects even today. It's a very real, very human connection, and it makes us think, maybe life is worth living. And as our producer Rob said, how many people are still alive today because they watched this film? And
that's interesting.
I'm actually going to tell you a little secret. I am one of those people. I am one of those people. When it was really, I was maybe in my teens. I was in my teens, and I was teased a lot because I was odd and I was effeminate, they thought, and I was flamboyant and I wore a lot of strange things, but that was I really did not want to be around anymore. And now there was the thought of also my mother, but this film made me think, how many lives had I touched? And even the point where George Bailey saves his brother from drowning in the ice. When I was 4, saved my little brother from drowning in a pond. He went in after his ball, and it was just this little pond on our property, and he went in after his ball, and then because I screamed, my father came running and pulled him out, and now he has children of his own that wouldn't be here. So I had that same thought because of this film.
I think the other message go ahead, Courtney. You've been in and out. Go ahead and speak.
I was just going to say, like, that's really, I think, what I found so relatable about the film is just like you. When I was younger and it was, childhood trauma that I had to live with, I thought that the world would be better off without me. And I wish that I had seen this movie when I was dealing with that, or I had that in my brain. And I unfortunately am a bad witch and I didn't do my homework, so I didn't rewatch it. But I did watch it for the first time a couple of years ago, and so it was fairly recently. And someone had recommended it to me and said, this is like the movie, like you have to watch this. And I remember sitting there, I was at work, I worked overnights, and I was the first couple minutes where the stars are talking, I was like, what did you just actually make me watch? Like, what is this ridiculous thing? This is so stupid. Right. And like the stars are like flashing every time they talk. Like, I was like, please. And then I found as the movie went on, it was like really gripping. Like, it really touched me somewhere deep inside. And I ended up sitting at work in front of people, bawling my eyes out, because it really makes you think about that. Like, and it's not a thought that I haven't had before, but like, it really just puts it into perspective. Like, if I had done what, my younger self wanted to do, look at all the things that I would have missed. I wouldn't have my son. I wouldn't, be working at a job where I get to hear kids say their first words. I wouldn't have been gifted The Killing Tree by Jason Mankey. And it's like, what kind of world would that have been? Terrible one. But but it's true. Like, it's really true. And I think that's what I connected with the most about this, is that I wish that I had that. I wish that I didn't have that support when I needed it. And I feel like this movie could have been that. So I like to think that this movie did save lives and probably continues to do so.
And in this crazy, hopeless world that is so crazy now, we need more of this message. It doesn't happen. It's like not popular or something to be hopeful and love and all that. It's, past a Hallmark commercial. We don't have it. So let's watch it again. No. We lost Heather.
Heather touched on this earlier, and Courtney kind of did. But I mean, I was like the president of the Methodist Church youth group when I discovered this movie. I mean, it was that kind of era for me, and I always wondered, would I like this movie as a witch, as a polytheist witch who's mostly in love with the Greek gods? But I don't think the religious themes really hit you over the head. A lot of cultures have angels, and we can interpret angels thousands of ways, and they don't ever use the name Jesus. They use Joseph, right? Which I assume is meant to be Jesus's stepdad?
Mm-hmm.
How does that work?
His stepdad.
Adoptive earthly father? I don't know. But even then, that's not biblical at all, that he would be in charge of angels or something, right? So the religion part of it, I've never thought was like too in your face. Yeah, people prayed in the movie at the beginning, but a lot of people pray, right? I pray, just, I probably invoke Dionysus first, other than, instead of Yahweh or God. But I mean, I like that it's sort of open to interpretation, and it's not particularly preachy. I mean, you don't ever see the Bailey family going to church, right? He's not, I'm going to go talk to my minister and sort all of this out. The support unit are the friends and the family, just like it is for most of us.
Yeah, it's humanity. I like that. It's bringing out the good side of humanity. I was a slacker like Courtney, and I did not get to watch it again because I've been in an 1890s hotel that didn't have television, very little electricity, and no heat. That's why I don't have a voice. That and Cedar Fever. So I'm excited actually to go watch it again because I've seen it, that yearly kind of thing, but I just think we could all use a hit of it right now.
It is really, really lovely to see.
Hi, I'm back.
Yay!
I'm back.
We missed you.
How was it like on the other side? Did you realize that it was better to have you here? Did Claire tell you that you needed to be here, that you had friends who missed you?
Yes, that's exactly what happened. I just said, I'm done. I don't want it anymore. And then I realized that if I wouldn't be able to share my great wisdom, and I wouldn't hear your great wisdom, and my life would not be the same. So I'm back.
Heather, you really have a wonderful
ring a bell,
coven.
ring a bell, ring a bell, ring a bell. But
amazing.
Now Courtney's gone. She's on the other side.
We talk a lot about like the feel goodness of this film, and I think that's the first thing that usually pops to mind. But I think there's a strong anti-capitalist message in this movie too. And Frank Capra was accused of being a communist later on, probably because of this movie. I mean, the bad guy is the rich industrialist, which I really love. Like, the politics are the heart of New Deal politics, and I'm right there for it the whole way through.
And this Potter fellow, he creates these homes and then he mortgages them to the hilt so that people can barely afford anything, and then or they're stuck renting forever, and they don't own anything, and he owns everything. And the homes that he builds are subpar and substandard, but he makes a lot of money. And he owns the bank, and he owns all of these businesses. And yet George Bailey, that one little guy, he holds out and he holds out and he holds out. And every time when he's about to fail, something happens. Something catches him right at the end. And he does give the finger to the capitalist.
I want to point out that, Henry Potter is a couple of things about him. First of all, he's the Barrymore, of course, the classic family that that began during the silent era. In fact, I grew up just a block from the Barrymore house in New Jersey. The original Barrymores, back in the silent era, because Hollywood began in New Jersey. And so I grew up in the town of beginning of Hollywood, the first Hollywood. And so that was super cool. But the one thing about him is, first of all, obviously he's Depression era because he's wearing a blanket. He has polio. We assume they have that kind of thing going on with him. But the anti-capitalist or the rich evil person is very much a trope in that period of time. Hollywood loved to, Capra especially, as Jason pointed out, loved to have loved to show the every person fighting against the powerful. That was very Capra. That's very Hollywood. That's very much the American rugged individualist theme. This is very much a part of American Hollywood lore and myth. So that plays into it. And Jimmy Stewart always plays that person. He's brilliant at that role. Okay, it always goes back to Jimmy Stewart with me, by the way, if you haven't figured that out.
Do you like Jimmy Stewart?
The other thing, he's so fabulous. So anyway, if you didn't know, Jimmy Stewart is so good. Can we talk about him? No. Anyway, back to Potter. So the funny thing about Potter is that they keep calling it Potter's Town. At one point it's Potter's Field, which is very interesting. And if you know what Potter's Field is, you see a little bit of another conversation, a little bit of another thing going on there, because Potter's Field is obviously the place where people are thrown when they die, when they're buried. When they die and nobody knows who you are, you're thrown into Potter's Field. There's one in Potter's Field's in Long Island, New York. It's also a biblical reference. So you have here Potter's Field, and I think they call the town with the slum town Potter's Field. And then there's a lot of other politics going on here, and this is where I get into the parts where you might actually, it might ruin the movie, so we don't really want to do that. But there also is when he comes back and he's not there, and all of a sudden the town has become Pottersville. It is like everything that the Hollywood censors would not want to be in a movie. Everything that they considered bad is in that town. Everything. Now, when I say Hollywood censors, so Golden Era was heavily censored. And I will not talk about that now. You can read it in my book, or I can talk about it another time about what that means. But yes, Hollywood has highly censored at this point. And everything that they considered bad is in that town. It's hysterical. That's the best. When he walks down that town, I'm like, oh my goodness, is he in Las Vegas? What the heck's going on here?
Gambling and drinking,
including jazz music. Billiards. Oh my God, pool and billiards, dance halls. I mean, what is this? All of a sudden, I'm in the Music Man. They had trouble right there in River City.
Oh my God, that's hysterical.
What is going on? It's very fun.
I'll admit that there was a part of me that would have rather lived in Pottersville at the end, right? It was like, oh, especially like my young self, like, oh, dancing girls. I would much rather have that. But the rest of it I wouldn't have wanted. Just a little bit of the vice, Martinis probably would have been enough for me. That was the pub before it became like Nick's, which was not as nice. Though Nick was probably making more money, so Nick was the only one who got cheated in the whole thing by having George alive. Yeah. No one ever talks about poor Nick.
I know.
Yeah, poor Nick.
I want to say something that I thought was really interesting observation about me. Our beautiful producer, Rob, he's out there in the other lands. He will send us little things like quotes or this, and he sent us an old Saturday Night Live sketch, The Real Ending. And I love Saturday Night Live. I've always loved it. And it was too violent for me. I couldn't handle it. I don't care. He's evil. You guys killed Mr. Potter. I've become so politically correct or something. I wasn't happy about my reaction to it. I was not happy about my reaction going, I like Saturday Night Live. Was it William Shatner talking about what we're going to have? And and I was offended by a comedy sketch. Oh, slap yourself, Patti Negri. I think that's what's going on in the world, but I just wanted to say I was offended by that Saturday Night Live one. Well, they killed Potter. Just saying.
Oh, I was cheering him on.
He just
I was like, yeah, go get him.
I
Get him,
can't.
Mary. Punch him right in the face.
I've become such a peacenik. I'm such a peacenik. Oh, my beautiful Philip, don't hurt anybody. I can't. All right, before I lose my voice again, do we have any quotes for this beautiful film?
Well, I'd like to thank my coven for this one because, as I said, I did not do my homework this week because I was a bad witch. But when I made that admission to all of you, everyone was like, wait, I gotcha, and sent me some. So I did, like I said, I have seen the movie before, obviously. So I went through and I read them, and there was a few that popped out that I did remember. I think my absolute hands down favorite is the senior angel says, a man down on earth needs our help. And Clarence says, splendid. Is he sick? And the senior angel says, no, worse. He's discouraged. And I feel like that's my life every morning when I wake up and I'm like, oh, I don't want to get out of bed. So I really like that one. And then I've been saving this money for a divorce if I ever get a husband. And I have never felt something so hard in my life.
It's one of the best scenes in the whole film. So good.
And then, isn't it wonderful? I'm going to jail because also me. At this point, right before as I was walking in to come be on the show, I was like, I'm so tired. Like, could I just get like a light coma, or like, could I be hit gently by a car? Like, not anything to cause serious damage, but like, I just need a break. Like, jail sounds kind of nice for a little bit. And then you look a little older without your clothes on, because that's what everybody wants to hear. So those are my quotes.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
First, most famous, but we have to share the most famous quote of the movie.
God bless us, everyone.
No, that's the wrong. That's the wrong. Hold on.
You'll shoot your eye out.
Strange.
No, try again.
Strange, isn't it? Each man's
the
life
most
touches
famous
so
one.
many other lives.
Well, there's I guess that one, but the one about the angels. Every
a
time a bell
bell
rings,
an angel gets its
an
wings.
angel gets his wings. That was I supposedly didn't originate with this movie, but it is definitely the movie that made that famous.
I can only
And of
hear,
course,
I can only hear these quotes in the original voices that they're in. So if I read
Right,
one, I'm
sorry.
going to do a bad impression of someone every
I love
time.
that.
well,
Yeah.
I love that.
can you read the one? Do you have it in front of you? The one that's written in the book of Tom, the book at the end that the angel gives him. Clarence gives him a book, and it says that he who without friends, I
Remember,
you know which one I'm talking about?
remember, no man is a failure who has friends.
There you go. That's another
Yeah.
one.
Speaking of which, Jason, do you have a movie minute?
I do, but it's not funny because this movie's too sacred for me.
Jason?
So I'm all like deep and philosophical.
Okay, well, we'll
tonight.
forgive you for it not being funny. We'll
All
let
right.
you be sentimental this time.
Okay.
This time.
Strange, isn't it? Each man's life touches so many other lives. When he isn't around, he leaves an awful hole, doesn't he? Ignore for a moment the dated and sexist language and instead dwell on the meaning of those words. Your life directly touches hundreds, perhaps thousands of other lives, and the connections between you and those individuals means your life then touches tens of thousands of other lives, if not more. We are connected to so many people, even when we don't realize it, and the ripple effect of those connections means that everything we do has the potential to reverberate across the years. In It's a Wonderful Life, the most stark example of this involves the consequences of George Bailey not being present to save the life of his brother Harry. Decades later, that meant Harry was not around to save the lives of hundreds of people on a U.S. transport ship during World War II. Most of us will never be called upon to save the physical life of another, thank goodness. But that doesn't mean our actions in this lifetime will be without significance. Throughout George Bailey's life, there were hundreds of small moments that added up to big moments. Forgoing his honeymoon kept the building and loan open, which led to the development of Bailey Park, which lifted the lives of hundreds of people, allowing those people to live with dignity and security. That blessing in turn lifted up even more lives as generations benefited from being able to live somewhere other than Potter's slums. A metaphorical helping hand can have the same amount of power and influence as a physical one. Each man's life touches so many other lives as a piece of wisdom I've tried to build my own life around. I can't change the entire world, but I can be a force for good. I can smile at others, refrain from passing petty judgments, and be a shoulder to cry on. I can listen to others and empathize with them, and I can treat everyone around me with dignity and respect. It has always been my hope that the reverberations of these little things will echo down through the years, and that I will end my days upon this earth having been a force for good and as a bringer of kindness. We are not alone on this journey through life. We share this road together, and on that road, we can't help but bump into one another. So do your best to make sure those bumps bring joy and light to those around you.
Jason! I didn't want to cry.
I warned you, this movie like gets me in a deep, deep, deep place. And I think about it often. That it's not a horror movie, but that scene at the cemetery where Clarence takes George there and he sees Harry's tombstone, though the dates are wrong, depending on how you look at things. But anyways, but when he says it and he's like, all the men on that transport died because you weren't there to save Harry. I mean, whoa! I mean that, boom, that's powerful. That's like just one of the most iconic scenes in movie history, and the music behind it is great too. But wow, I mean, just to think something that you probably forget about in your life, and then you go backwards and you think about the repercussions and the power that had and how much that changed other lives. I mean, it's a great lesson, and it's something always great to dwell on.
I love you guys so much.
This is our cheeriest episode ever. Oh.
Yeah, next week we're doing Rudolph. We're gonna just laugh the whole way through.
Can you just do the Killing Tree again real quick?
And I think the message there is beautiful, Jason, and it's something I try to tell my authors when I work with them. And my writers that I've edited, or my authors, when they get lost in what they're doing, or they don't know, or my favorite one is, well, why would I write about this? Why would other people have written about this? And I simply say to them, you haven't.
Oh.
Other people have written about it. You have not written about it. And you can relate that to any piece of art or anything you do. Courtney, other people have taught children before, but you might not have. You do it your way. And that's that ripple effect, is that it's not the subject. It's not the task. It's the same over. It's you. And you influence, as authors, as writers, as journalists, as teachers, as all the things we do as readers, all of us, what we do is it's us, and that then can touch. If you can change one person, you have lived a rich life. If you can help one person, and that's I have to tell that and remind that to the authors that I work with on a regular basis, because you can get lost in what you're trying to accomplish and go, why bother? It's just going to be the same. It's just going to be. But it's not you.
Well, I feel that way, like,
it's not you.
When I talk about like the trauma, my childhood trauma, I talk very openly about it, and my mental health struggles, I talk very openly about it. And people are taken aback or feel uncomfortable sometimes because it seems like something you shouldn't talk about. It should be hushed. But to me, it's like, if I can help one person because I can talk about it, because I'm okay and I made it through, and you seeing me be okay means that maybe you'll be okay too, then that's why it happened to me. Like, that's why I lived through it and I survived it, and I can move forward and be that person for people. And, that's why I will never stop talking about it. And I will never, to me, being depressed, having a depressed day, I mean, you guys have, I've said it to you guys before that I have a bad mental health day, and it is what it is. It should be as commonplace as saying as that, I'm feeling under the weather. I have a cold today. I don't feel well. Well, I feel depressed today, and I don't, I don't feel well. And that's normal. And if me setting that example outwardly, that's why I talk about it like that, can help that one person think that, you know what, maybe this isn't the end of the world. And if you can deal with that, maybe I can deal with that. And that's, I think, important, very important. And I think that's what this movie does too.
Holiday spirit is here. Yay.
And that's the magic.
And that's the magic. As we all cry and cough and everything else.
Oh my God.
The Yuletide historian in me loves the weirdness of them singing Auld Lang Syne at the end too.
Me too.
We don't think about that today because that's definitely like slotted in at New Year's Eve. But in the early 20th century, people used to sing it at Halloween, and then they used to sing it at Christmas too. So it's hilarious to me. Now it feels like an anachronism.
Yeah, it's true.
Good. So we have a few more minutes left. Next week, are we doing Rudolph? What are we doing next week?
We're Christmas specials or holiday Yule specials.
What is your favorite special?
Bring your favorites.
I have a few of my favorites, but we'll talk about that next week.
All of the classics or not so classic.
Okay, Christmas specials, holiday specials.
I have a new one for this year.
A new one.
Is anybody giving this a wands down?
Yeah. Let's see right now because it is time to vote. So everybody out in the thing too.
No.
A wands up, wands down for It's a Wonderful Life.
It doesn't work for
No,
me.
I'm just kidding. Mine is up. I was just kidding. I was being a contrarian.
Maybe we should ring a bell on that too. I don't know.
I can't reach mine.
An angel sitting his wings, or a goat gets its man shoes.
Horns.
One's up, one's up, one's up. Everybody has got ones up. Thank you guys. Hi Scrooge. Hi Haley is Scrooge. But it's a cute film. There we go. From Dead Poet Pet Boy.
Oh.
So holiday specials next week. If anybody has anything coming up, I am home for the holidays. I'm not going anywhere for an entire month. And then I'm going to be in Virginia somewhere, but I am here. So join us every week. Anybody have anything coming up in the next month or so you want to talk about?
On Friday, I'm doing a virtual author forum for Llewellyn about Yule, which is free. It's at 1 p.m. Eastern time. But you should register online ahead of time. We have a little graphic if Rob's listening to me. But just go to llewellyn.com. It'll save you a spot there. It's completely free. There's some other great authors there too. I will be festive in a really great Yuletide sweater.
Ooh. Does anybody have any nice wardrobe plans for the holidays?
Well, I will be donning now my gay apparel.
Yes.
La 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 la.
I mean, I always don my gay apparel, but I will also be donning gay apparel next week.
Yes. I'm actually.
Did you all see my glass? I made my little Christmas light bulb.
How illuminating!
That is.
Oh wow!
Ooh.
Yeah. Jason turned his light off. That must mean that we said a bad joke, or what?
Just so you can see the light better.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Ooh, very nice.
Yeah. I'm a child that is easily amused. I know.
I like it.
Thank you. That is beautiful. All right. Thank you very much. Isn't this pretty? I got this in Texas too. I got the cough in Texas. I got the congestion in Texas, and I got this wand a while back.
The wand is great.
It isn't great. It's not great for what you use a wand for directing energy because it's not direct enough, but it's great for movies. It is great for
beautiful
things.
Because it's very visible.
So, and the funniest part of it is the box that it came in. It said something like magic stone stick or something like that.
It's the spirit Halloween.
Yeah, it did not get the thing of it at all. So all right, it is that time. We have one more thing to do that we do it every week. And we hope you out there, because we might have a cackle contest one of these days. We haven't done a contest in a while, and I've been thinking what we have. We have Valentine's Day coming up, but we might want people to work on their cackles as well. Just saying. So, we've got a 3. 1, 2, 3. Yeah!